a group of creators who spent their time and resources creating the immersive and competitive Race to Buried Treasure. The company consists of Olivia Sherrick, who is the manager, Tiffany Imperial, the scripter, Elias Cullen, the designer, and Balin Porter, the researcher. Coral Cave & Co. were successfully able to create Race to Buried Treasure by listening effectively, communicating diplomatically, and respecting all creative avenues. They promote deep thinking, contributed extensive primary and secondary research, and creatively designed the game to offer fundamental entertainment value.
Welcome to Race to Buried Treasure. Let us fill you in. Treasure Island has had hidden treasure for years, buried by Captain Coral, a legendary pirate. All creatures and humans of the sea are racing to get their hands on it, wondering about what kind of amazing loot they will find. Immerse yourself in this underwater luck-based board game and try to find the hidden treasure before your fellow merfolk, pirates, and treasure hunters. But be careful. The tide on the island is known to rise dangerously high and low. In some cases, our friends have never come back. Do you have the bravery to find the hidden treasure, or will you be wiped away with the tide? Race to Buried Treasure consists of 2 games in one with a reversible board design. The Buccaneer side caters to ages 8 and up, while the Captain side caters to a slightly older audience, 14 and up. After picking which version of Race to Buried Treasure you'd like to play, you can pick your character. This includes merfolk, 1 of 2 pirates, or 1 of 2 treasure hunters. After you lay down all die, coins, and cards out on the board in the places that are marked for them, you can roll the die to determine who goes first. Highest number wins. From there, players go in order based on clockwise rotation.
On your turn, roll the die and move that amount of spaces, then simply follow instructions for what that space means. For example, if you land on a wave, you're going to flip a coin. Let's say that you flip heads and get high tide. One option could be, alas, a small wave pushes you ahead. Move forward 1 square. Or tails would be, oh no, you were out in the sun for too long. You were too sunburnt to move. Stay in place for 2 turns. The island is known for its multiple circles, so as you progress in the game, you are sure to come across a port space. This is when you will flip a gold coin to determine if you get to continue onto the inner rings of the island or not. The Captain side is almost identical, but it implements a money system. Waste spaces are now attached to an amount of money your character has either gained or lost. These points can then be used to buy shopped items where shops are indicated on the boards, allowing players to gain major advantages over the others hunting for treasure. Just one example is the Totem of the Ocean shop item, which allows you to pick what number you roll on the die between 1 to 6. This can be used at any time during the game, but can only be used once. The goal of the game is to get to the buried treasure in the middle of the board. The first one to do this wins.
To start the game, the players roll the dice to decide who goes first, and the turn order continues clockwise. The players then place their game pieces on the board and roll the dice to progress forward. If a player rolls a 4 on the dice, then the player moves forward 4 spaces on the board. Makes sense. Players move clockwise along the board. Once a player hits a port space on the board, a coin flip will determine if they can move out of the water and into the island. Flipping heads will allow the player to continue, while a tail flip means that they must continue along the outside of the board until they flip heads at another port. Players that fail a coin flip on a port tile lose their turn and must continue on their next turn to the next port. Port tiles are red. Several tiles on the board are called tide spaces, which will have a wave graphic on them, and if a player lands on one of these spaces, then they pick a tide card from the pile. Tide cards have both a positive and negative effect written on them, and the player will flip a coin to determine which result they get, heads being positive outcomes and tails being the negative outcome. When players run out of tide cards, reshuffle the already used cards. The advanced side of the board, also known as the Captain side, follows the same rules with additional features. A monetary system is implemented with a few tiles we call shop tiles. Players earn money by pulling the tide cards, then players can spend the money they earn from the tide cards on special items that are labeled shop cards. The amount of money gained or lost depends on whether the player flips the coin and gets a high tide or a low tide on the tide card. The amount of money earned is shown in the corner of the high tide or low tide blurb. Use the notebook provided to write down each person's earned amount so you know how much you have to spend. The items a player can acquire range from having the effect of shielding the player from a low tide effect to freezing an opposing player to their spot for a few turns. A player must declare that they are using an item, and players can only buy them once. The shop only has one of each item, so a player could buy all the items in the shop before anybody else has a chance to get to them. You got to stay on top of your game. Once the player advances to the middle island and lands on the X, they win the game.
Race to Buried Treasure is a roll and move game that appeals to different levels of gameplay, from casual to advanced, with there being two sides of the game. The Buccaneer side of the board is the more casual side by having more accessible rules and shorter matches, while the Captain's side has advanced rules and allows longer play. Both sides of the board have the same goal, which is to beat the other characters to the X, which marks the treasure but has thrown in twists and turns from the high and low tide cards that could either help or halt your character. Race to Buried Treasure can be enjoyed by family and offers that competitive luck-based edge because they don't know if they are going to get to soar with the sirens or get stuck in the whirlpool. Are you up to the challenge? Will you sink or will you swim?
Say, kid, are you going to be the hero that finds the hidden treasure, or will you get wiped away with the tide? Okay, it's on.
Coral Cave & Co. is a group of creators who spent their time and resources... Coral Cave & Co. is a group of creators who spent their time and resources creating the intense... Maybe I was ready.
And then just one example is the Totem of the Ocean shop card.
No. Where is that one?
It's okay, you can cut your hands.
Race to Buried Treasure consists of 2 games in 1 with a reversible board design. The Buccaneer side caters to ages 8 and up, while the highest number wins. From there, players are determined on number rolled, highest to lowest.
Please enjoy these bloopers of me not being able to talk despite being in speech and debate for 10 years. Okay. Flipping heads will allow the player to continue. Tide or low tide on the tide card. The amount of money is continue on their next turn to the next port. Several tires. Honestly, what kind of shit show was that? Act like we don't know her. We do not know her.